Hey guys, back with another daily update video, and it was just another kind of weird day in the market. And just taking a look at the quick big board here, kind of mixed 50-50. Some stocks were up in the green, some stocks went down in the red. But the one area I'd like to draw your attention to is look at the semiconductor sector. The vast majority of all the stocks were down. So Intel, Nvidia, Qualcomm, Micron, AMD. So two of the stocks, AMD and Micron, that I made in my weekend video about stocks that I was looking at possibly opening positions on today, were in the red today. So that's what I wanted to happen. So AMD ended up only down 0.3%. Micron was down over 3%, which was great because then I could open up a position at a lower strike price and still collect a good amount of premium. But the other two stocks I was looking at, IWM and Disney, were both up. So that I didn't like because obviously the stock was going up, so I would have to get in at a higher strike price if I wanted to sell a put on them. But let's just take it one by one. So I actually ended up not making any plays this week, and I'll describe why. So let's take a look at AMD. And as you can see, AMD opened up in the red, which is great for me. That's what I wanted to happen because that way, again, I can get in at a lower strike price when I'm selling my puts. But it bounced up very briefly into the green during the first hour, or actually first half hour of the market being open, and then it just traded in the red all day long. So I was watching this, and this was good news for me. And what I thought would happen, or what I would hope would happen, was it would just kind of hover, trade sideways in the red. And then I thought, or I hoped, that during power hour between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. that there would be a really big sell-off and I could get in even cheaper. But unfortunately for me, the opposite happened. So if you look around 3 o'clock to 3:30, it started increasing in price. And then at 3:30, it started going down. So that's when I started getting excited because I thought, okay, from 3:30 to 4, we'll just keep going lower and I can collect good premium at a lower strike price. I was initially looking at the $50, $51, or $52 strikes this past weekend. And just looking at some of the premiums, I was getting good premiums at around 3:30. And I was thinking about opening up positions on both AMD and Micron this week. And I was thinking about doing almost 50-50 and not opening up positions on Disney or IWM just because they went in the direction opposite of what I wanted them to do. And this way I can get into AMD and Micron at good strikes. So I was looking at maybe opening up a 50, a 51, and a $52 strike contract on AMD. So one of each. And that way I have a little bit of a buffer in terms of getting assigned or not getting assigned. And if I do, I can kind of average my cost basis down. But I also sort of wanted to get assigned. So that's why I picked the strike of 52. Because if I get assigned 100 shares, so be it. But I just didn't want to get too risky and sell 3 $52 puts on AMD, because if I do get assigned, then now I have a good amount of money tied up in AMD shares, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I just didn't want to have all of my money in one stock, or the vast majority of my money in one stock. And so I was waiting because I thought, okay, if at 3:30 and now it's going down, I thought it was going to continue going down because look, from 3:30 to 3:45, it dropped from about 53.61 to 53.47. And this whole time, the premiums on the 50, 51, and $52 strikes were going up because the stock was going down. So I thought, all right, let me play it out and let's wait off for another 5 or 10 minutes, and I can get even more premium out of it, trying to milk as much premium as I can. But then in the last 15 minutes between 3:45 and 4, the stock price went back up. So then the premium started going down. So I didn't lock in any trades on AMD. I had some trades pending, but they just didn't get filled because I was in essence being a little bit too greedy with my premiums that I was looking for. But that's fine. I'll look into trying getting some AMD maybe tomorrow morning. And the reason why we're getting early is because AMD actually has a conference tomorrow, I believe tomorrow afternoon. And the thought is that AMD's price is going to go up after the conference. So here's an article from seekingalpha.com, and they talk about AMD. And it's really a bullish sentiment on AMD. I read through this article, and there's a lot of good news because they're comparing AMD to other stocks in the sector like Nvidia and Micron, and I mean they're even proclaiming that maybe AMD might go up to $70 because everything looks good for AMD right now. The one thing against AMD is that their PE ratio is very high, but some people think that it's just not an accurate calculation of AMD and where it is as a company currently, because usually P/E is calculated looking backwards. So people are saying that it's not really fair to look at AMD in the past because it's changed so much and have so much growth and such a good outlook going forward that PE ratio is not going to be that accurate. But that was my thought on AMD, so I didn't open up any position on AMD. And just looking through this article, if you want to read it, again, it's on seekingalpha.com. I think it was just posted a few days ago. But they really make some great points about AMD. I mean, for example, it says in a summary, AMD has the best-in-class products to reach 25% market share without capping the upside. Analysts have the earnings per share targets over $1.50 in 2021, making the stock cheap at $50. So if you want to actually own shares and sell covered calls and hold it for the long term, analysts are saying right now that AMD is a good buy. And like I said, they're targeting a price value of about $70 per share. So obviously, you know, this is just hypothesis and just people's opinions. Even analysts that do this for a living are not always right. So just take everything you read with a grain of salt. But it just has a lot of good information on here about AMD in general and the stock and why they're forecasting what they are. And so the other position I was looking at making was on Micron, which is MU. And Micron also did what I wanted to do. It opened up in the red at 47.57 and they just slowly bled off all day long. And unlike AMD at 345, it still kept dipping down. And like I said, I put in a sell order on Micron, but I guess I was a little bit too aggressive with my premiums. I mean, I was asking for $1 or $2 more over the current bid, so it wasn't crazy, but I just wasn't able to get filled. And that's one of the risks you run with doing what I do, in terms of I'm quite literally waiting to the last minute, or not the last minute, but the last 10 or 15 minutes. And so I put in my sell orders at 3:45 or 3:50 p.m. And so I only have 10 minutes for that order to get filled. So that's kind of the gamble or the risk I take. Up until today, I haven't had any issues getting filled, but I guess today no one wanted to buy Micron or AMD puts. And that's fine. Like I said, hopefully tomorrow AMD and Micron will open up in the red, and then maybe within the first 15 minutes when the market is very volatile, if they're going down, I'll just try and lock in some positions tomorrow morning. I do want to get in before the AMD event, because then prices might go back up and it'll be harder for me to get a good strike. But so Micron did what I wanted to do, and for Micron I was looking at the $43.50 and $44 strikes. So my game plan for this morning was to get 3 contracts of AMD and then sell 2 contracts of Micron. So that way I'm a little bit diversified. I mean, they're both in the semiconductor sector, but like I said, of the 4 stocks I was looking at today, Micron and AMD were the only 2 that opened up in the red and then slowly bled off during the day. So that's what I was looking at. And if we just take a look at the chart for AMD, you can see that it continued to trade in this light blue area between the Fibonacci levels of about $50.88 and about $54.54. So like I said, I think 50.51 is a strong resistance for AMD. So that's why I was trying to sell 50, 51, and $52 strikes, because if I do get assigned shares, chances are it's going to bounce back up and I can sell them for a profit again. So, you know, I even debated selling maybe 51 and 52s or all 52s just to essentially get assigned shares and sell covered calls for a profit. But like I said, nothing was working for me today. It was just a weird day in the market and I couldn't get filled. So we'll see where AMD opens tomorrow. And if we take a look at the chart from Micron, so Micron dipped below the Fibonacci level here at a price of 46.60 roughly. So it's interesting because it did something similar a few days ago and then it promptly came back up the following days. So I suspect Micron will do the same today or tomorrow, but it could trade back down here in this kind of darker green region as well. So tomorrow will be an interesting day. because if I do end up selling puts, like I said, I was looking at the $43.5 and $44 strikes. So that's towards the bottom of this Fibonacci level. So I think even if Micron does decide to trade in this kind of olive green area, I should be safe, because also looking back, the last time, it's been a while, probably been about a month or so since Micron was trading around 43. And then even when it was, it bounced back up all 3 times. So you'd have to go back to all the way to kind of mid to the end of April, where it sort of stayed below 43. So I think $43.5 and $44 strike puts on Micron are a pretty safe bet. So I'll look into getting into that again tomorrow morning, and hopefully I'll get lucky and get filled. And maybe I won't be as greedy with my premiums. But if we take a look at Disney just started taking off as soon as the market opened. I was kind of hoping that it was just a, like a pre-market run up, but as you can see, ever since from 9:35, at 5 minutes after the market opened, it just took off and then traded sideways. So I did look at the options chain for Disney, and I was initially looking at the 109 and 110 strikes this weekend to get a 0.4 or 0.5 return on my risk, respectively. But then once Disney took off, in order for me to get a 0.4 return on my risk, I would have to get in at a 114 strike price. So that was $5 more per share than what I was looking at this weekend. So I'd have to get in at 114, 115. And at that point, I thought it was just too much. I didn't want to go $5 over what I was expecting to. So I probably won't make any trades on AMD this week unless something crazy happens and it comes back down tomorrow, but I don't think it will. And then just looking at the graph for Disney. So now it broke above the Fibonacci level at roughly $117, and it looks like it wants to trade in this teal area again. So I think if you do want to make a play on AMD or Disney at 117 or below, you'd probably be safe, but it's just a matter of tying up that much capital for me. So I held off on Disney. And then the fourth stock I was looking at was IWM. And again, that as far as 9:35 a.m., just like Disney, it just took off like a rocket. Thought it was going to come back down, but then went back up and just pretty much traded sideways. So again, this weekend I was looking at getting in at the 130 or 131 strike prices to collect the 0.5 or 0.6 return on my risk. But once it took off, I looked at the option chain, and for me to get a 0.4% return on my risk, I would have to get in at a share price of 133, which was again a few bucks more than I would have liked that I was looking at this past weekend. So I held off on IWM as well. I mean, it did look like it came back down during power hour. So the interesting thing was the stocks that were down all day in terms of Micron and AMD, they came up as soon as the market was about to close. And then the stocks that were up all day, like IWM and Disney, they actually did what I wanted to do, and they went down during power hour. So you can see it went from roughly 141.25 at 3:35, and then the last half hour went down to 139.80-ish. So it dropped almost $1.50 in 30 minutes. So I wish AMD and Micron did that, because then I for sure would have opened up some positions. But like I said, we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. So I tried. I didn't make any trades today, but that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with being all cash for one day. You don't have to be in the market every single day that it's open. So I think that's another good example of don't force trades, because I could have accepted a lower premium and gotten filled instantly on my AMD and Micron options, but I didn't want to. I knew I could get a better fill if I just waited, I think, till tomorrow. So that was my game plan for today. Let me know if you made any plays this week. And I also saw another interesting article about Micron on, again, Seeking Alpha. And they're also very bullish on Micron. They think it's on its way to $60 per share. And it's trading right now in the 40s. So again, if I end up getting assigned shares, it's not the end of the world for me. They have this nice graph here comparing Micron to other companies that are in the tech business, like Western Digital, Intel, AMD, Amazon, Zoom, and NVIDIA. And so if you look at this graph, it doesn't include Micron, but the green line represents AMD. And it's showing that from March, basically from when the pandemic started, AMD is up over 18%. Other stocks that are up are Intel, Amazon, which we all know about, and Nvidia. And Zoom Zoom is up almost 71%, but I think this is exaggerated right now, and I think Zoom is going to come back down to earth, so I don't want to mess with Zoom options right now. But this graph is pretty bullish on AMD as well. And then the other thing this shows about Micron is that people are speculating that because everyone is kind of working from home and everything's going online and everything is kind of tech oriented right now, Micron actually supplies products such as RAM for servers. So people are very optimistic that Micron is going to have really good business right now because people are going to be, upgrading their servers or buying more servers. So they have a very good outlook. And then another nice graph or chart analysis that's in this article is they show this chart analysis on Micron, and I didn't do this, but they're showing what they call a triangle formation or ascending triangle, they call it. And this is usually bullish, and they think that at some point Micron is going to break out and then top $50. So they think $50 is kind of the area of resistance. So once Micron breaks above 50, it's really going to pop and take off. And they think that the target is going to be around 61.75. Again, technical analysis, you have to all take it with a grain of salt. I mean, these are people just speculating, and one piece of bad news can basically make all of your technical analysis null. But again, they're very bullish on Micron as well. So if I end up getting assigned shares, I'll be okay with that. But yeah, so it was kind of a lackluster day for me. I tried to open up some positions, but wasn't successful because I was a little bit too greedy in my opinion. But let me know how you did if you opened up any positions. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, leave them below. And happy trading.